Big blow to Mamata government there. Clearly, the request of the West Bengal government has been shot down with the Supreme Court upholding the High Court's order on central forces indeed to be deployed in West Bengal. Supreme Court dismisses the plea by Bengal government. The Supreme Court says no interference needed in High Court orders. Central forces can be deployed, no problem with the High Court's order. This is West Bengal's government, their plea to not have central forces in West Bengal during the panchayat elections has now been struck down by the Supreme Court itself. Central forces will be deployed. Supreme Court upholding the High Court's order on central forces deployment. Supreme Court saying no interference needed in the High Court's order. The central forces can be deployed, no problem with the High Court's order at all. Of course, amid this widespread violence, there was a lot of talk whether or not to allow central forces to be. In fact, West Bengal government was resisting central forces to be deployed, claiming that these central forces acted as the agents of the BJP. They indulged in violence a lot more. These were the allegations that were leveled against the central forces. Now, while the opposition appealed to Supreme Court, asking for, in fact, the matter was in the High Court. The High Court had said deploy central forces. That matter then went to the Supreme Court, with the top court now finally agreeing that West Bengal has a history of violence. There is no need to change the High Court's order. The central forces can surely be deployed in West Bengal. Anisha Mathur for more on that. Anisha, tell us more on the Supreme Court striking down the West Bengal government's request not to allow central forces.
Well, Nabila, the Supreme Court very clearly in its order has noted that since the High Court's order on the 15th of June was meant to ensure free and fair elections in the state, that there is a huge volume of polling booths that has to be set up, that the election for all local bodies is being done on a single day. Therefore, they have said that the order passed by the High Court does not warrant any interference. What is important to note here are three things really, Nabila. One, that the High Court's order, which had called for central forces to be deployed all across the state of West Bengal, has now been upheld by the Supreme Court, which has noted that the state has had a history of violence as far as polls are concerned back in 2013, back in 2018 as well. Secondly, what the court has noted is the fact that because the huge volume of polling booths that are going to be set up because of the extent of the election that has to be held, the police deployment of the state of West Bengal is not enough. And this is something that the state itself had admitted, that they do not have enough boots on the ground, which is why they wanted to requisition forces from 5 other states. Now, the High Court, of course, said that that is not enough. The central forces need to be deployed, and that is something now that the Supreme Court has upheld. Thirdly, what the court has noted is that for the sake of holding free and fair elections, you cannot have violence or the threat of violence, because there have been allegations of attacks on people who had gone to file their nomination papers. There have been, and we've been reporting on this as well, there has been violence in the state. There has been bullying of people who are going to file their nomination papers.
Right.
The Supreme Court has taken note of the fact that even the state itself has in their security assessments noted that there are at least 189 polling booths which are sensitive areas, and therefore, because the High Court order was to ensure deployment in all over the state of West Bengal and not just only the sensitive areas, the Supreme Court has noted that to hold the free and fair elections, the High Court's order does not warrant interference.
All right, stay with us.